You're making it very difficult, young man. I'm sure in the long run you realize I'm right. Now I'll thank you to leave my house. Father, Bill and I are going to be married right now. You couldn't stop us with an act of house. Wait a minute, Marjorie. Let's be sensible about this. I couldn't ask you to give up your family for 1 week with a soldier who's shipping out. It would be fair to you. Can you be sensible at a time like this? Well, it's has to be. It may be a long time before you're going to have to live with them, not with me.
All right, let me know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Aha, okay. That was weird. I was connected to my headphones. Oh. Oh, there we go. I was connected to my headphones, so I'm not sure why it wasn't picking up my voice. But yes, I was just saying about so Synth about the leaves changing, that on Saturday we went to our friend's land upstate here in New York, and we did happen to see a couple of trees that were someone's soap opera was playing. Oh, I don't know. let me hold on, let me see, where are the participants? Participants, and I'm gonna mute all just in case. Here we go. Thank you, Holly, for I guess something was wrong with my audio for a moment. But yeah, so we started to see some of the leaves changing, and they're going to be letting us know when, it's really changing, so that we can go up there in a few weeks and check that out. That's the area that we're considering potentially getting a house there. And so yeah, so we're really excited to go check that out. And then yesterday, I went to the New York Botanical Garden. They were having a full day of events. And so we went by there, and it was cool because Brian was able to check out some new parts of the garden he hadn't been to yet. So we did some filming at the Rock Garden. So we're actually going to be working on editing that. But one of my biggest things that I was freaking out about was, as we were walking in right by the entrance, and I think it's the back entrance. Yeah, it was the back entrance. Uh, I saw these things on the ground by a bus stop, and I immediately looked down and I go, "Oh my God, chestnuts." And so I wasn't sure if they were American chestnuts or Chinese chestnuts. So I did grab one to bring home, and I grabbed a leaf as well. So I was looking on the floor for a leaf. So I put it into here. This is one of these old study guides that I found oh my gosh, at a thrift store 10 years ago. I love these. Anytime I find anything like that, I pick it up. So I have so many guides. I literally have a whole shelf that's just guides. There's seashells, insects. The majority are trees and plants, but yeah, there's bird guides. It's just guides. But this was the leaf. And so I'm trying to see. So it looks like so upon further investigation, it looks like at NYBG, so the New York Botanical Garden, they apparently about 10 years, a little over 10 years ago, they planted over 100 chestnuts, American chestnuts that had been genetically modified in some way. So some were hybrids, some were they purposely wanted, so the big reason why I'm even excited, if some of you are like, why are you excited about an American chestnut? So American chestnuts, they were almost wiped out completely. because of a disease. So I think I had mentioned previously about like Dutch elm disease, right? It was introduced, knocked out a bunch of our elms. We used to have elm forests, and that's not something that you can see anymore, unfortunately. Um, so something similar happened to our American chestnut. And so it used to be enough that, people would literally have like handfuls of chestnuts, and it was very common for people to kind of come together and gather up chestnuts um and eat them, especially during Christmas time, like during the holidays. So this was like a common thing. And um yeah, they really almost got completely wiped out. And so I didn't know this. Upon my research, I came upon the discovery that in 1904, the chestnut blight, which was the disease that was taking them all out, was actually the first kind of report was at the New York Botanical Garden, 1904. And then it's there where they planted these 100 different types of American chestnuts, some alteration. They're trying to see which ones basically will have that resistance to the blight. And they said in the article that you really won't know who is the most successful until they hit at least 50 years of age, the tree. So this was really cool. So I didn't think I was going crazy because I was like, this looks like an American chestnut. I know there is one American chestnut I have found in Prospect Park, but it wasn't old enough to be putting out fruit. It was still really young, and I thought I was losing my mind. And I took so many pictures. This was like 5 years ago. I took so many pictures and I was posting them on Facebook, and I was like, am I losing my mind, or is this an American chestnut? Because I was like, this doesn't look like a Chinese chestnut or like a European chestnut. I was like, I think it's an American chestnut, and it was. Um and so now there's actually a plaque there that says it's an American chestnut, which is cool. But I had no idea there were any at NYBG, and I've been, volunteering there, taking classes there. Now I'm like partnering with them. Still had no idea. Had no idea that they had American chestnuts. So this was really cool. But yeah, so I had a leaf. I grabbed a leaf that was on the floor, and I'm gonna very carefully. There were no seeds, so the chestnuts themselves were gone. The this of course the squirrels get to them, and that's it. But the pods are there. This is like a sea urchin. I stabbed myself pretty bad yesterday, so I'm trying to be a little bit more careful today. Um, but so there are two. So there's like two here. So there would have been two nuts right there. And it opens up like basically like that. But they're like a little sea urchin. They are super, super, super sharp. Very, very, very cool. So this is super awesome. I've only ever seen them in books, so I'd never seen like the actual fruit pod, like the seed pod. I'd never seen it in person. Um, so yeah, Brian was like, "What's happening? Why are you excited?" And um, and I was just like, "It's a chestnut." And so yeah, you could just look at that. That is some level of protection there. Uh, so that nothing would eat them. But I mean, once they open, they're fair game. So the squirrels definitely took them out. Um uh Oh, Suzanne says, won't that make a long drive for your work at the botanical garden? Oh yeah. Well, right now we're not planning to go now to move upstate now. Like our trajectory is like a year and a half, 2 years. So um I have my contract with the New York Botanical Garden is for a year. Yeah, so yeah. Yes, they do start out as light green. Yes. Yes. They start out as light green. Yes. And it does look like a porcupine. Yes, Synth and Suzanne. Yep, absolutely. It does absolutely look like a porcupine. And they're not and it's not like a hedgehog or or it's just kind of straight. Like they are actually, it's hard to, they are pointing in like different directions, like they're cross-hatched. So it's like they're like this, and so they get you. I stabbed myself yesterday. I was getting into the car and I was like, oh, where am I gonna put this? Because I didn't want to put it in my book bag because I thought I'm gonna forget and then I'm gonna reach my hand in and, and I'm just gonna stab myself. So I thought, oh, hold on. We had gotten a snack, so I thought I'll put it into this paper bag in the meantime while we're in the car, so that I don't hurt myself. And sure enough, I go to put it in the paper bag, and as I'm trying to get it in, it like it doesn't want to go in, and then it just kind of bounced and ended up on my leg and then on the floor. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna leave it on the floor until we get home, and then I'll figure it out. But this, yeah, it's super cool. So I have some like acrylic boxes. So I think I might put it in one of those so that I don't continually get stabbed every time I want to check it out. Um, but it is really cool. Uh, I definitely want to get, once we have more space, I definitely want to have like a cabinet where I can kind of lay all these things out because I collect like seed pods, like weird plant stuff. So I have seeds. I have some like even giant seeds from Africa. I have like fossils of plants. I have like these weird seed pods and things like that. So uh right now they're mostly like in a giant uh plastic tote, and I'm like, no, no, no. I need to I need to display them. Um oh my gosh. Here we go. Are there any animals that can eat that or and not get stabbed? Well, squirrels. Squirrels will definitely grab them once they're open. Once they're open, if you can see, this is kind of upturned, so it does kind of create a safer opening here. Like this is a little bit more safer. They probably might get a little stabbed if they're not careful, but yeah, it does kind of create like a little upturn, so it kind of pushes the needles away from the opening. Um so they're able to grab them. Uh and let me see. And then Adeline, we're getting from Saskatchewan, getting two most the rain constantly. Yeah, many trees are turning yellow and many are turning to turning rusty. Yeah, um, and this is something that I've been telling Brian that we really need to keep in mind. The East Coast is getting wetter, so that's what's happening. So these rains that we're getting, like days on end of rain, it was pretty scary. On Friday here, thankfully our block was perfectly fine. It was raining, but there was a little bit, our basement takes in water, so that's always something that you always have to be alert with, like on alert with, and stuff like that. But like the streets were fine. Um, but that wasn't the case. Like in Manhattan, in the Bronx, the garden got actually shut down. It was completely closed off to the public all day Friday and all day Saturday. And then some parts of Brooklyn, they actually showed like Prospect Park, and there was water just shooting off the stairs. And I mean, the subways were a mess. If any of you saw buses, where they were driving and there was water in the bus as people were like having their feet up in the air. Pretty scary. And that's gonna become a more common reality. And so the city has to figure out what to do. Uh Thankfully, our friends up there, they were like at a higher elevation. So they just had rain, of course, but they didn't have any flooding. And so, you know, that's what I was telling Brian is we need to we need to make sure that if we get a home that we're not at like the bottom of a hill or anything like that. I want to know like what's the kind of the flood, are we on a floodplain? Like what's going on? But that's what's happening. The West Coast is getting drier and the East Coast is getting wetter. And so we have to kind of prepare for that and see what can we do to mitigate that, because this type of thing is going to become more and more prevalent. um oh, Terry, I had a tree on my street in Brooklyn a lifetime ago, and I wonder if it's still there. I would hope that a chestnut tree is still there. There are Chinese chestnuts and European chestnuts that have been planted and have grown successfully in the city. But yeah, it's the American yeah, the American chestnut is I'm hoping it can make a comeback. Um yeah, so Suzanne saying Central Indiana is in drought. Yeah, it's getting really bad. And so it's something to think about. um just to kind of see what is, in the next decades, what are these forecasts. And I think it might cause like a lot of people to move from certain places. And yeah, I I wish that it was easier. Hey, let's capture that rainwater, of course, before it hits the floor. Rain, just have it as rainwater, and then be able to move it to the places with drought. um we were seeing that there were so many people, like tourists, um that were posting videos, and they were dancing in the rain, and the rain, no, please, no, there's just so much disease. And then there's just so much diseases and stuff, all the everything in the city. And then people were posting like, unfortunately, rats and stuff that were drowned. And then there were people walking around barefoot. So I'm hoping that we don't have a whole big issue uh with a bunch of bacteria. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. um but yeah, it's so I'm kind of, I'm wary. I'm very, very wary. I did want to shifting shifting gears on a lighter note. I did want to I put together this presentation about transitioning plants from outdoors to indoors. So I know not everyone is who tunes in is in the northern hemisphere. But this does work. It just, I guess it would be just backwards, because I think, yeah, they're entering they're soon, I think they're coming out of their winter and getting into spring, and we're finishing up summer and going, headfirst into winter. And apparently, like in 2 weeks, they're expecting, like upstate, they're expecting a frost already, the first frost, which seems so fast. It seems so fast. And we have had temperatures dropping here in New York City. Like we had the other night, it dropped down to like 56. So this is the time that if anybody does have their house plants, outside, they keep them outside during the summer, that it's time to start that process of bringing them in, because we might be getting colder faster. So I wanted to to share a little bit about that. So hold on, let me. Here we go. Aha. Okay. But welcome everyone. Let me see here. So, um, so today we're doing a short class on transitioning your houseplants from outdoors to indoors. Now, the inverse, of course, is very similar. So when you're bringing them outdoors for the first time, that the part of the process is basically the same. Um, and so in terms of like the time spent and things that you need to watch out for. So um I'll be tying that together. Let's see. So why? Why, some people might be asking, well, why would you be moving some of your plants indoors? Well, I mean, a multitude of the plants that we're purchasing as house plants are tropical. They're actually not built to survive these colder temperatures. I mean, there are some plants that are very resilient in the cold or that can deal with a nice amount of you know, freezing temperatures, but well, almost freezing. But then that's kind of where their threshold ends. So there are like echiverias, for instance. They're these succulents. They're able to actually be outside even if it's in the 40s, but below that, once it actually starts, water can freeze. That's where that's not good for them. Because a lot of their plant cells, the water that's within those, especially succulent plants that are not, uh, they do not come from areas where it gets to that point where it gets to freezing. They actually, their cells, the water in those cells will actually freeze, and then it causes them to burst. So you end up just parts of your plant are basically dying off. And when it's something, especially like a stem succulent, so something like a euphorbia, uh, if it's not, sometimes with an echeveria, if you're like, oh no, like I left it out, and you might have a couple of the leaves, which aren't true leaves, they're called phylloclades. But if these what we tend to call leaves on like echeveria has become damaged, right? It's a little bit easier to kind of remove that, and okay, we can bring it back in. But for something like a cactus or a stem succulent like a euphorbia, that's not always the case. A big section can be damaged, and it's one kind of unit. And so it's very difficult to save the entire plant. So yeah, just being aware of that and knowing your plant's cold tolerance. So a rule of thumb tends to be that as soon as the nights start hitting 60, it's time to start the process. Basically, I'm sorry if you can hear Julia, she's barking. Oh, maybe she's whistling now. She copies our neighbor's Yorkie, so she was barking for some reason or another. I'm not very sure. Um, but once it starts hitting like 60, that's when you should start the process. And this process can tend to take about 2 weeks if you're going at a pace that ends up working out a little bit more in your favor. Now, I completely understand if the cold comes out of nowhere and you're going to have to bring in your plants a lot faster and you don't have time to do this transitional period. That can happen. So it's just, yeah, that can happen. But if you do have the time to do to this like slow transition, it's a little bit easier on the plant. And what is this transition? So basically, you're bringing in your plant that has been now living outside for, let's say, 2-3 months, and you're starting to bring it in for increments of hours for a few days, but you're still putting it back outside. So the first day you can bring it in for 1 hour, maybe 2 hours at the most, and then put it right back outside. And then the next day, repeat that. If you had done 1 hour, do like 2 hours, and then 3 hours, maybe 4 to 5 hours. So every day you're bringing it in for a longer period of time, but you're still letting it go back out. So you're not completely changing the environment. So it starts to kind of feel out that it's changing its environment. And this can make it a little bit easier for the plant for the transition. Sometimes if it's too sudden, if the plant's like outside bright in the sun and then you bring it into an apartment that maybe doesn't get that much light, um, it's a very big transition. It's very quick. The plant it has some trouble acclimating. When you do it kind of little by little, it tends to be a little bit more it's slower and a little bit easier for the plant to kind of understand that it's in this transitional period. So it's something to try. It's sometimes it's just it can keep from disasters happening. Especially when, oh my gosh, if you're bringing in a plant that, yeah, like I said, is in bright sun, it can suffer greatly. It really can. And sometimes in with the changes of humidity, and it's not only just, the sunlight, but the changes in humidity and stuff that can definitely impact your house plant. So why would we want to bring them indoors? Again, you can control your indoors a lot more than you can, of course, control the elements outside. And so if you want your house plants to survive the winter, you're going to want to bring them in. But there's also sometimes plants that they may not be tropical plants, but they may also need to to come in for the winter. Also certain types of bulbs, if they're from zones, for instance, that don't go through a deep freeze, you would have to bring, and your area does, you would have to bring them in during the winter, so that they can at least not be completely frozen. Because there are certain plants like caladiums, for instance, they die back in the fall, in the late fall, and then there are these bulbs, and they are tropical, so they can probably go down to about 40 degrees and be okay. But once the ground is actually freezing, they wouldn't be able to survive that. So if you're able to bring in those bulbs for the winter, just so that, they're in the home, and, like at 60 degrees, they're going to be nice and comfortable until they start to come back in the spring. So you can absolutely do that. So just some things to keep in mind, because if it's a plant that is from a tropical region, it's not going to fare well outside during the winter, especially if you tend to freeze. So oh, and yes, and I picked a picture of a caladium here. But so what's the first thing to do too, when you're starting to bring them in? Assess them, assess your plants. Maybe you haven't really given them too much of a look this summer. You've been busy doing other things. Sometimes, folks will put the plants outside. They find a good spot for them. The plant's happy, and all they're doing is worrying about hosing them down. But they're not really looking at the plant in terms to check if there's any critters that have potentially made their home in the pot. There's so many stories of folks when they bring their plants indoors, of having like toads or frogs. I mean, they're harmless, but burying themselves in the dirt, and then folks bring them in and are like, why, there's a hole in my houseplant pot, and then they find the toad. So, just double checking, seeing if there's anything in there. Also, if there's any pests, are there mites? Are there maybe, some type of caterpillar, some type of moths? A lot of moths and butterflies, their young are very specialized, in that they will a certain host plant. So it's like they really only attack kind of like one type of plant. They'll feed on that. But there are some that are generalists, and this means it's kind of fair game. Anything that they can get their eggs on, that their young would be able to munch on. So double check, see, is there anything? Just double check before you bring it in, especially if you have an existing collection indoors. You just want to make sure you're not bringing anything in that could potentially spread to your other plants. And yeah, and as I mentioned, yeah, decide which plants need to come in. So know your plants. So if you have plants that you're unsure of, like what is this? I'm always happy to identify them. You can always put them there's public forums on Facebook for identification. And there's also things like the iNaturalist app. A lot of people do take pictures of house plants or plants that they see in people's gardens that are ornamental, and they do get the answers there as to what they are. So it's worth finding out at least what is the plant, and what is this tropical plant? Is it in temperate regions? And how cold can it get? And also how hot can it get? You want to know that spectrum for your plants too. Um, so it just makes it a lot easier to work with them. So try to have that kind of range, maybe have a running list or something like that with your plants, because that's something you're going to need to know, especially if you are kind of doing this thing where you're putting your plants outside and then bringing them back in. And then preparing, of course, the indoor space. So making sure that this is why it's nice when it's spread out over like at a week or 2 weeks, because it's also a transition for you, right? You might have been used to just hosing them down. I know this is the case. I have a lot of family members that do this, and so this is the advice I have been giving in these last couple of weeks. And I was like, yeah, so I feel like this might be a good topic to just mention. um, but yeah, it's better to kind of go in knowing like, all right, so I'm taking this week or 2 weeks to slowly bring these plants back in. Um, Clear the space, maybe the shelves that they used to be on. You spent the summer putting stuff on them and you need that time to clear that out. Or you need to, rearrange certain plants. Maybe you've gotten new plants and now you're like, whoops, I need to bring in these outdoor plants and I need to kind of play some Tetris over here. But it's a transition for you as well. So you're bringing the plants right back in, and making sure that also uh, maybe some folks kind of will put them into kind of like a pot that they'll keep them in during the summer. So just making sure that you're bringing something in has that you're able to water your plants, and it's not like for water accumulation. So like this was an example for one of my cousins. She was bringing in a plant that she had the pots and she had put them into like one bigger container so that they were all kind of together in this one container, but it had no drainage on it. But when it's outside, I mean, you got sunlight, you've got better air circulation. So it was okay. The plants were okay. But I would not recommend that for her to do indoors, especially because there was like a lot of soil in there. And I was like, yeah, no, it's better if she just, takes them back out and just has it that way. It's just easier to manage indoors than trying to kind of keep that going, because it's not gonna it's gonna make it a little bit more difficult. Um, and then this transitional period, right? So you're gradually bringing them in. You're bringing them in for a few hours at a time. And you're wanting to, so one big thing is avoiding shock. So this is something that happens even when it's the other way around. When people start bringing plants from the indoors outdoors for the summer, plants go into shock, especially if it's a really big, drastic change. Um, so some plants that are in, an apartment window, happy, and then people think, oh, that'd be great if I put it out on my, uncovered porch or something. And then what happens is now it's way too much sun for that poor plant and they get burnt. And this is something that can happen also. They can go into shock when you're bringing them from the outdoors in as well. Even if they were previously indoors, that it can still happen. Plants will get used to that surrounding environment. Of course, you want to make sure that it's an adequate environment. If the plant is like a shade plant, you want to make sure you're putting it in the shade and not full sun. As long as its parameters are being met outside and it's happy, then that's great. But when it's time to bring it back in, you want to try to get as close to that as possible. Um, so if it was really happy before in that window, you kind of want to return it to that spot. So kind of keep also in mind where you had the plants before you move them out and whether or not they were doing well in that spot. Um, and then as you are also checking the plants, right, for any anything that might be coming your way. And this, you might find yourself uh, doing an initial kind of assessment, kind of an examination of your plant. But then every time you bring it back in, you're going to do a quick look again because you left it, out for a few hours. Something could have gotten on there, so you're going to want to double check that. But this is also a great time to kind of clean up your plant. Is there anything that needs to be kind of cleaned away? You never want to leave rotting leaves inside the pot. So this attracts fungus, bacteria, other types of like decomposers. They're just doing their job. They're just breaking things down. But what happens is that this can cause other types of like pathogens or something to take hold in your soil that could then spread to your plant. So you want to be very, very mindful that you're not leaving like, leaves that had fallen at the base of your plant. It does not work as fertilizer in this case. Instead, it can actually cause damage to the plant. And wipe them down, give them a wipe with like a paper towel or a microfiber cloth. um just cleaning off anything. My mom, she was mentioning too, especially she was having to wipe her plants because they were doing construction about 2 or 3 blocks away from her, but they've had a lot of high wind, and with all the dust from the construction site, she was finding that a lot of the plants that she's growing were just having like this like blanket of dust on the leaves. And so, while it's outside, while your plant's outside, it's exposed to everything. So you might not have noticed, they could be very much very dusty. They could have pests. You just want to really make sure that you're checking it out and then helping it where necessary, right? So you definitely don't want to just bring the plant in and not give it a second look. You definitely want to really, really look at that plant and see, is there anything that I can do to ensure the health of the plant. This is also when repotting, you might notice that it's time to repot. So this is a very well, I don't think volatile is the right word that I'm thinking, but that was the first thing that came up. But I think risky. I'm gonna say risky. Risky is a better word. So during this transitional period, the plant is going through this acclimation period. So you don't automatically go, oh yes, great time to repot. But if you have a lot of plants that blew up during this summer, it was their growth season and they are bursting out of their pot. They are just, you can see it's very, very obvious that you need to upgrade that pot. You can, I mean, take the time to be able to do that. If you need to upgrade a size, I always recommend going at most 1 inch to 2 inches in height of the pot and in the width of the pot, at the most at a time. Only because you don't want to completely put a smaller plant in a giant pot, because yes, there's a lot of discourse about this, but I mean, I have found it's just, personally, I have an apartment. So for me, definitely has been the case. If there's just too much soil in that pot for the plant and it doesn't have an adequate root system. So if like the roots are this big and I put it in a pot like this big, from the get, from the start, it's just too much soil. It stays moist for longer periods of time, and I increase the possibility of root rot. So that's what I've found personally. And so trying to go, okay, if the roots are this big, I think I'm gonna that's, oh, I think I Oh, there we go. It looked like I froze doing this. That's what I saw on my end. But yes, so if the roots are, let's say, this big, then I'm like, okay, I can do a pot this big rather than like a giant pot, right? It's like, okay, let me start off here, let it get started, especially when I'm transferring plants that, let's say, I had rooting in water or in leca or something like that, where I'm now transitioning it into soil. I definitely don't want to put it in a giant pot. So it's always good to just check. Also, the type of the pot. So just make sure that you're not switching, let's say, a plant from a terracotta into a glazed ceramic pot. If the plant has been doing really well in that terracotta, just know a couple things are going to come into play there. One, the glazed ceramic type of pot, it doesn't dry as quickly. It doesn't allow for the same amount of like air exchange that a terracotta does. So it's going to be wet for longer periods of time. And that might be something your plant does not appreciate. And another thing to keep in mind is that during the winter, especially if you are keeping your home, where it is kind of getting a little chilly, the humidity is kind of low. So there are basically signs of winter. It's not freezing in your home, but it's definitely not the same as the summer. The plant is going to recognize those cues, and it's not going to be taking up as much water. It's not putting so much energy into growth at that time. It's kind of like in a dormant or sometimes even semi-dormant state. Um, and so it just doesn't work to have so much extra moisture during that time, right? This might be different if, let's say, you were putting the plant outside, because then it's going to dry far more quickly. But if it's happy in a terracotta, I would say to continue to use terracotta. So don't try to change the um the material that you're using in your pot if your plant is happy in that current material. So if you really just don't like the pot, you can get like a display pot that you put it into. Like, so you put the existing pot into that. So you can do that. But just I don't recommend completely changing like the material that you're using, because some of these plants, especially like succulents, um a lot of like philodendrons, especially a lot of aroids, they like terracotta. So they like that it's wicking, it like wicks the water, it takes the water away from the mixture, and it kind of like puts it back in as the mixture dries. And they really like that, because a lot of these plants might be epiphytic or semi-epiphytic, which means that they kind of live by clinging on trees and stuff. So they're not used to kind of sitting in wet soil. So they really do like that terracotta material, rather than you putting it into like a ceramic pot where now it's too wet, and this can just harbor bacteria and fungus, and then your poor plant succumbs to root rot. Um, and then, of course, a well-balanced mix as well. So always kind of be aware, especially if it's your first time repotting that specific plant, that you've done your research about kind of what type of mix does this plant really, really like. So, of course, looking at its current mix is going to be very helpful. But sometimes there's plants that you might purchase that they're coming in their nursery pots, and they're in a very kind of peaty type of mix. It's like very brown. And if you learn that, oh, wow, this plant actually needs a little bit more drainage, you can add things like perlite, maybe wood chips. Just look more into your plants. So it's very important to understand your plant's needs. I know sometimes we're very quick to accumulate certain plants and like, oh, it's so pretty, but then we don't know what it is or what it needs. And it's definitely good to have that in mind, because if you want to keep the plant around as long as possible. And then watering, as I mentioned, you're going to have to also adjust your watering schedule. So now your plant isn't in the sun, even if it was in shade, it's still getting there's a lot of warmth, um, of course, during the summer season. The amount of light is making, so water and sun, right? That is crucial to photosynthesis. And the more the plant photosynthesizes, the more water it's actually using because it needs water to kind of complete that process. But now, if the amount of sunlight is dropping dramatically, it doesn't need that much water. And so you might have found yourself watering your plants outside, maybe even every day or every couple days because it was drying out so quick. That is not going to be the case when they're indoors. So a lot of these plants, you'll end up watering them once a week, sometimes even once every 2 weeks. So that is something you also have to keep in mind. It's a very drastic change. And so you're not going to be watering as much or as often as you were during the summer months. So you're just going to want to, watch out for that. And then, of course, making sure that they're actually drying out before you go to water them again. So just make sure. I think I have two cats that are wrestling right now. Hold on. Jules and Mozart, sometimes they'll start to wrestle and then Mozart gets very upset and starts to hiss at Jules. Oh, there you go. Jules came running. All right. Stop picking on him. I swear, these they love each other. They'll go from cuddling and licking each other and then wrestling. So I don't know. And now Mozart just appeared. See if I can get Mozart to make an appearance. You want to come up here? No? Well, Jules is now up here, so we'll see. One of them is gonna get on on my lap. But yes, and then always double check also that the plants are drying out before you water them again because uh, you're not gonna be watering it as often or as much during the winter months. So you don't want to end up over watering them. Oh, don't be upset, my love. They're back to wrestling. Okay. So hopefully the mic isn't picking them up. Um So lighting requirements. So I was talking about this too. Now, trying to put your plants, let's say, back where they were in their happy spots, right? If a plant was doing really great at a spot, you had put it out during the summer to give it some like extra growth potential, you're going to want to try to move it back to where you had it if it was really happy there. Or maybe you have a better situation for it. You're like, yo, well, it actually did really well, with this level of light and I'm gonna move it. Know that we're not getting as much light. It's shorter days, and the light is not as intense. So these are things to keep in mind when we shift into the winter months. So not as much light, less like shorter days. Now some folks might end up having to get supplemental lighting, so getting grow lights that will keep the plants happy during the winter. Now, some of that is just giving them just a little bit of extra light, while some folks actually basically keep the growing season going. And this is what tends to happen like in our home. While we kind of have two situations because we have plants that are right by the window that stay there year round. And that definitely you know they'll kind of go into like a semi-dormant state. It's a lot of succulents. They kind of go into this semi-dormant state and we continue taking care of them. And then they start pushing out a bunch of growth once spring comes back around. And then we have plants in our interior that we have with grow lights, with supplemental lights. And we're keeping, of course, the windows are getting much colder than the center of the home. But we have our humidifiers going. We like to keep it, upper 40s if possible during the winter in terms of the humidity percentage. And then the home is staying like 70 to even 75. Our landlord sets sets the heat a little high sometimes. And so it can get very, very warm in here. Well, we will actually have to open the window to kind of regulate the temperature. So for the interior, our plants think it's still the growing season. And so it's very common to you know, if that's what you're doing, then this makes it a lot easier during that transitional period because you're still giving the plant, you know, you're supplementing basically the environment that they were getting outside. Maybe not as, you know, maybe not right out there, but pretty close that the plant will continue pushing out growth while it's even indoors. Um, and yes, and rotating pots. So always, if you're putting plants by windows, this is also very important because they will lean towards the light sometimes. You want to make sure that the plant is just adequately getting these amounts of light, because when you had them outside, as the sun, you know, moves across the sky, it's getting light from different directions. But when you have it next to a window, that's not the case. And so you're going to want to rotate that plant. And as I mentioned, with humidity, so sometimes you might find yourself like, okay, well, now it's winter and my house gets really dry, or our apartment gets really dry, like super dry. So what we end up having to do is supplement that humidity. So a few things is I like to boil water during the winter. We have a small apartment. It's 500 square feet. So I can boil water, and like the living room and into the bedroom, definitely the humidity goes up, and it's as easy as me boiling water. There's also, we have humidifiers. So we do what we have to do to mitigate that dryness to get that level of like between 40 and 50% humidity to keep the plants relatively happy. If we let it dip, where I have seen that humidity gauge go down into the teens, that it gets like that dry, like overnight, that is where you start seeing your plants, like especially because we have a lot of tropical plants, you start to see those tips, those crispy tips. It's just way too dry. And so that's what we find ourselves having to mitigate that. Also putting your plants together, that during the evening hours, plants tend to kind of release excess water that they didn't use during the day. This so you can cause like this kind of rise in humidity if you have a group kind of huddled together. It does indeed create like a little microclimate. So clustering plants together can help kind of hold that humidity in that cluster. Humidity trays, there's, you know, yes and no, a lot of discourse about that too. I have used humidity trays, and I've liked using them. That's something that I grew up with my mom doing, and I mean, I don't feel like it does any damage, so it's something to try. But this is putting kind of like filling up the saucer. Let's say I've seen folks use marbles, rocks, perlite. I've used leca, and it's just you put the plant on top, and it's kind of like a moat, so it's not sitting in the water. But then you're just kind of watching it and filling that up. So as the water evaporates, it's kind of giving a little bit extra environmental humidity for your plant. But a room humidifier definitely does the trick much more effectively than more of like a passive type of option. And I had mentioned that when you're bringing your plants in, you know, you're going to want to check for pests. But during this time, this is still a stressful time for your plant. So when the plant's immune system is actually kind of lowered during stress, which happens to us too, what ends up happening is that it's actually much more vulnerable to getting infestations. So this is why it's really important to check the plants as you're bringing them in, because sometimes the plant might have, like, let's say, one aphid, two aphids, and aphids can reproduce asexually. And so now the plant is a little stressed. It's kind of getting used to its new surroundings again. And this is when its defenses can actually drop. So it's not producing as many. So a lot of plants will create kind of chemical cocktails that will make their leaves very bitter. Or like certain plants like mint plants, right? It's volatile oils that make their leaves smell really good to us, but that's not very attractive to to some pests. So sometimes these defenses will actually drop during this time, and this is when the aphids, let's say as an example, really take the, what sound was that? Julia made like a weird like burping sound. But the aphids will take advantage and you might end up having a full-blown infestation. So really, really checking your plants as you're bringing them in is of the utmost importance. And of course, you want to, as you're bringing them in, don't immediately introduce them to the current indoor collection that you have. Even if you're like, well, this plant has been in my house, for 20 years. Well, it's been outside for a couple months, so you don't know what it might have picked up. And you want to be very mindful that you're not introducing anything to your other plants that have been indoors the entire time. So if you are bringing in, thank you. If you are bringing in, yeah, Brian just brought me some matcha, and we spray it down with alcohol. So, um, yeah, being careful to kind of bring them in and have them a little set apart, right, from your current collection. So you're just not introducing anything. And then once it's been, over 2 weeks and you're sure that there's nothing on those plants, you can go ahead and fully integrate them into your collection again. And using things like rubbing alcohol. We use rubbing alcohol for everything here. I always have it on my house, like on any like little, I have little things like house plant tool trays that I have around the house. I have here, like I have this little shelf and I keep it here, and I have a little um this was actually a pot. And I keep everything in here. So I have scissors, I have all these, I have a blade here. I have all these different types of tweezers. Um, so it's something that it's like my go-to thing. So having that on hand to kind of, mitigate any potential pests. Also, I like to do it as a preventative too. So I like to do that. But some folks might have really great results with like insecticidal soaps or oils. Um, in terms of neem, because I do get that question a lot. So neem oil, once it dries, it's not effective anymore. Um, so while it might be okay if you have like an active infestation that you wash the plant down and then you kind of put the neem oil on it, the only problem with that is that then you need to take the plant out of direct sun for anywhere from 5 to 7 days, so about a week, because it makes the neem oil actually makes them much more vulnerable to getting sunburned during that time. Um, and so that might not be possible for you to move the plant right out of the sun. And then instead your plant gets like really burnt. um, so I don't know. I feel I've used neem oil. It hasn't given me the results that I've wanted. So but I understand that some folks, if there's a really bad infestation and you're like, I really need to, there are different types of things. There are insecticidal soaps, there's insecticidal oils, there's also systemics. So if it's a plant that you're not consuming, like it's not like your tomato plant, let's say that you're growing indoors, um, there are systemics that you spray on the plant. Basically, they get, or some are sprayed into the soil. They're taken up into the plant, and now the plant, it's kind of like those flea and tick preventatives that you put on your cats and dogs, where now if the flea or the tick bites them, it's now they have like a poison inside of them that will kill that pest. That is how systemics work, so with plants. but then that would not be safe to consume. So you would have to make sure that it's not something that you're planning on eating ever, ever. Don't, don't do that. But if it gets to that point where it's like really bad, you might end up having to do that in terms of using a systemic. Also fertilizing. So during the winter, again, a lot of these plants, unless you are providing this like continuous growth environment, again, they're like in a resting period. They're not getting enough, they're not getting enough sun. They're not getting, they're kind of lowering their water intake. They're not actively growing. It's not you don't need to continue fertilizing. So either you can completely stop fertilizing for the winter, for these plants. But if you are, let's say, continuing that growth environment indoors, or let's say you have a greenhouse or something like that. So where they're not in that, they're still actively growing, even if it's a little bit, you can use, like a balanced fertilizer, or like we have fish tanks. And so we use fish water basically year round. So it's very gentle. It's just a little bit of nourishment, and that's what we give our plants year round. But if you are using some like a store-bought powder or something like that, you want to make it super, super diluted, and you really don't want to fertilize more than once a month, even during the growth season. Once a month, those 3 months works out pretty well, just on the safe side. You can over fertilize, and this can cause your roots to get burned. It can also cause like leaves to get burned. So you want to be very, very sparingly, very sparingly with that. But if you're using something that's really, really gentle, like let's say fish water, or even things like worm castings. So that's something else that you can do. And some people make worm casting tea. And so they'll put the worm castings into water overnight, and then they'll use that water to water their plants. So it's very gentle, adds a little bit of nitrogen to the plants. Some don't do it too much with succulents and cacti. They don't really like too much nitrogen. But if you have other types of plants, yeah, they might appreciate that, because it is very gentle. It's super, super gentle. And then that winter rest. So as I was mentioning, some plants, like they're still gonna look fine during the winter, but they kind of look like a statue. They're not pushing out any new growth. They'll kind of have that shape for the rest of the winter, because they're not actively putting that energy into pushing out growth. They're just kind of focusing on surviving the winter. You might lose a couple leaves. That's very common, especially with the acclimation. If you're bringing the plant indoors, that is always a possibility during any acclimation, even when you bring the plant home from the store. It's always very common to get a couple leaves that drop off as the plant is kind of getting used to its new environment, because then they'll push out new leaves that, are kind of better suited for that environment. And then some plants, they actually do, as I mentioned, like with caladiums, they do go dormant. So they will lose all their leaves, but they're still alive. So there's still maybe a bulb or a corm, or sometimes just they'll go back to, let's say they have a woody stem, and they'll die back, and then they'll come back. And so they are very much alive. So you do want to continue taking care of them. It's just you obviously would not be putting them in direct sunlight, and you wouldn't be watering them as much, but you do need to water them. So you can't just completely ignore them, unless there are sometimes when there are bulbs that you would remove from the soil, let's say in your garden, you keep them indoors over the winter just so that they don't completely freeze. But they're like in a paper bag, like it's not in a pot. But if it is in a pot, and this is something that you need to take care of during the winter, double check, because you don't want to it would be perfectly fine, and then you forget to water it. What I have found is what I'll do with we have like alocasias, and it's very common for some of our alocasias to actually go dormant during the winter. So I put like a little tag on it, like a neon colored plant tag into the soil so that I'm aware that that has a plant in it. Because if not, I'll forget because I have like little piles of pots. And so if I don't realize that there's something in there, I won't water it. And so, make sure that you're aware, right, where you put these plants. Yeah, and just pay attention, give them a little looky loo, just try to maybe even once a week make it a point to kind of check your plants, especially during this time. Just make sure you're not missing anything, especially pests that might have come in. And yeah, if they're struggling a little bit, seeing what you might be able to do to kind of supplement that. But yeah, it's a difficult time, so just be wary of that. um, yeah, and so I just wanted to mention that, especially because, again, the frost is about to hit, which is, I can't believe it. Um, and these are questions that have been coming up for me these last few weeks as we're approaching this time, as summer was ending and we were entering autumn. This is a very common question. So I was like, all right, I think this might be a good topic to explore. But next week we will just be doing regular Q&A. So come with questions. Oh, it went over here. Hold on one second. Not sure why it does this. There we go. There we go. So there we do have a Google Sheet that you would be able to access if you're interested. And you can go ahead, there's a QR code here. And if you want to swap any cuttings or any plants or anything like that, while you still can, so you definitely want to check in your area if it's going to start getting cold. It's not a good time anymore to really start to order plants for shipping, because if it's when it's way too hot, it's not good, and when it's way too cold, it's not good. So keep that in mind. But if anybody does want to make any connections and swap plants, definitely check that out. Um, this class is free. I'm always going to keep it free, but of course, I do appreciate anything. That's always always helpful. And yeah, with the Patreon, which folks were asking me to start, it is there and it's live. Um, and so now with all this content that so Brian actually just got the new like Adobe Suite thing for editing, because I was trying to use like different types of softwares and I just couldn't get it how I liked it. So pretty excited. So we have a a tour of the rock garden that we shot yesterday. I also did a tour of one of the exhibits that's in the Haupt Conservatory at the garden. And what I'm excited to mention is that I am actually bringing on experts um, to talk about different aspects of the exhibit. So that's going to be kind of like a mini documentary on the exhibit, and talking about like the concepts that the artist was trying to explore. And I'm really excited. So that is in the works. We're editing that, and yeah, I'm really excited, and um, I'm excited to bring that out. So there's going to be a lot of video content coming out that's going to be available on YouTube. Um, Also, just yeah, I'm gonna be putting out some more like downloads. I'm gonna be making those lists that we all talked about like different plants and like my favorite movies about plants and books and like series and things like that. So that is coming together. So yeah, so there's a lot of content coming. So I'm really excited about that. And yeah, I'll be sharing that out. So Patreon. That's where I know I have to focus on that, on building out the Patreon. As for folks, when they're curious about what types of different tools and things that I have for my own plants, this is non-affiliate. I don't get anything for these listings. This is just a list that I put together of different things that I've purchased, that come highly recommended, and that I've had great time using. So you're welcome to check that. There are like different pots I've gotten, squeeze bottles like for watering smaller plants, all the different types of like substrates and stuff. So grow lights, all in there. So if you want to check that out. And then lastly, yes, on Instagram, I'm urbangarden.eco. That's also the website, and that's also our the email info at urbangarden.eco. And we do have a TikTok. So I do have a TikTok. It was pretty dead for a while. I just posted a video like after months. And it's on TikTok as Urban Garden. So I have a bunch of videos that I took. So I really I want to use it more, but I definitely haven't been using it as much. But like even let me see here. There were a bunch of things even just yesterday. So there's this part of the exhibit that I had not seen before, that was inside the library, and I took a shot of it like from the top down, and it looked very ominous. And so I'm trying to see if I think this is the video. So I'm gonna put like some freaky horror music. It was really giving me The Shining. Hold on. Glare. Here we go. Those are all hands. The artist put this sculpture together, and it's all hands. And interspersed are these beautiful what's it called, glass hand blown glass plants that she made. Let me see if I lower the brightness. That might help. Here we go. Yeah. So these are all that I'm putting in the video, but these are all glass, and they're all representations. Like this is a bird of paradise. So she made these beautiful, beautiful, beautiful hand-blown glass plants, and she fired them up, so they gave it like a black ebony kind of look to them. And it's basically talking about people's role in the destruction of the environment, and basically it's the blood on the hands of the people that have led to the extinction of so many species of plants. It's a very poignant message, but it was absolutely beautiful, and so I'm very excited. I'm doing like a whole video breakdown of it, and then there's another section in which it continues, and then as you go downstairs, the staircase is covered in messages. And so the goal was to say that while so many people before us have caused this destruction, there's still hope, and people can still fix it. And so it's all messages of hope and unity and solidarity with the environment. And it's all strings were kind of woven onto the staircase. And folks can go and put their messages on the strings. It's a very beautiful message. And so I'm really, really excited to share more about that. There's also more book reviews coming out. Something else that I found that I wanted to show you. So this was great. My friend's son, so he was the one who actually showed this to me, because he's great. He just turned I think he just turned 4, 5? No, 4. I think 4. and he just came up to me as right after I got there, and he's like just leading me to these plants. And he goes, "What's this plant?" He knows. His our friend, he said that as soon as our car pulled up, and he's like, "Oh, you know who that is?" And he goes, "The lady who knows the plants." So he brings me by the hand and he's like, "What's this?" And he actually pulled a rock, and there were some violets. And what's really neat, and it's another geek out moment for me, was that so violets, I know that they have what are called chasmigamus and cleistogamous flowers. Um, but I've only known them in pictures. I've never like purposely dug up a violet to try to find the cleistogamous flowers. So chasmigamus flowers are flowers that are above ground. They're open to the environment, right? They're open to be cross-pollinated. They're open. And then, so the chasmigamus, it means open marriage. That's what the etymology is. But then there's cleistogamous, and so cleistogamous flowers, the etymology is a closed marriage. Basically, they are white flowers. They have no color to them. There's no need to, but they're underground flowers that self-fertilize, and the seeds that they produce are actually clones of the mother plant. But it kind of works as a backup plan. So if something happens to those topside flowers and they don't get fertilized, and therefore they don't get seeds, and therefore the plant can't continue to spread its genetics, right? It has a backup. Now, not all plants do this, but violets do. And I have only seen those flowers in textbooks. I've only seen them in textbooks. I've seen them online, of course. And it blew my mind that he was showing me cleistogamous flowers. Um, and here we go. So there you go. Oh, there we go. I am free. Hold on. I'm not sure why my whoop, there we go. I'm not sure why this was freezing for a moment. Let me press play here. So he moved the rock, and sure enough, these like white looking flowers, they're the cleistogamous flowers, and they're the flowers that are occurring, here there's a bunch of rocks. And so they're growing right here, but they're out of the sunlight. And let me see, I think, here we go. So I zoomed in, and you can see that if it wants to zoom in a little bit more, there we go. And look at those seeds. So it was very, very cool. I'd never seen that in person. So that was something else. That was something else to behold. Um, so yeah, so I'm just like have a bunch of like these videos, and so like that. So also different things like the resin on pine cones as well. Resin on pine cones. So you're all seeing some content that's going to be coming out on video. So you're getting like the first dibs look to it, but I'm really excited. So there's going to be classes. I'm going to have like breakdowns of like exhibits and different things like that with guest speakers. I'm also doing an interview series, and which I'm really excited about because I'm actually going around to local plant businesses. So you guys are getting all this news first. So I'm really, really excited. There's things coming. It's just I've been so swamped with HWB, with like I took on that executive director role, and it really has taken over my life. And so I just made a year yesterday in that position, and now with the new website coming out and stuff like that for that job, I feel like okay, things are kind of coming together, and I want to focus on my stuff again. So yeah, so I'm hoping, and there might be some potential interns, which is going to be very helpful for that. But yeah, so you guys are seeing this first before anybody before anybody else. And also know that I am putting together like curriculums and stuff for different classes. I'm going to make some pre-recorded classes. I'm also going to have some live class sessions that I'm going to be putting out. but because you guys are on my like mailing list, you know, and because you're here, you guys get first dibs to a bunch of the things. So you would know first. I would post it in the Facebook group, and yeah. So I would totally do that. So let me get these questions. A Aguilar, what about my veggie plants? Pepper, squash, basil, mint, thyme, pineapple. Yeah. So in terms of bringing them indoors, so in terms of like peppers, squash, basil, mint, thyme, uh, I would definitely, I mean, they usually are grown. So a lot of mint plants, for instance, they're perennials. They'll keep coming back, um, like rosemary and stuff like that. So I mean, once they're done, you know, you can harvest them out, and you can kind of prune them back a little bit, and they'll be fine. They'll come back. If they're in pots and you feel more comfortable bringing them in, the squash and the pepper and the squash, I think, and the basil, um, I think that's basically, I think they're annuals, so I don't think they'll continue. Mint, thyme, they can continue a little bit longer. So you could, if you wanted to, bring them in. In terms of a pineapple, if it's a pineapple plant, I would definitely bring that in. I don't think that would survive the freeze. I don't think so. I don't think they would. Oh no, A Aguilar put, yes, a toad lived the whole winter in one of my plants. I found it later when I was bringing them out in the late spring. Yes. I mean, if you don't mind, I personally wouldn't mind if there was a toad or a frog, if it was just like spending the winter, because some of these amphibians will actually hibernate, and that's how they survive the winter, is that they usually bury themselves in the dirt, and so it might happen to be your house plant. And so that can happen. But if it doesn't bother you, I mean, by all means, but I just know that some folks, yeah, they're terrified, so they so you might want to check. And then Terry says, my ponytail plant grew a lot, but the leaves are rather thin, and same for the spider plant. Ooh, um, they're thin. Sometimes that could actually be a mineral issue. So sometimes it could be something that they're not getting in their soil mix. So I'm not sure if that's magnesium. It might be like a nutritional thing, like a nutritional deficiency, like a mineral deficiency. So there are like things that you can add that come kind of ready mixed that have really nice ratios, but I would check for ones that would work with like a spider plant and with a ponytail palm, because that sounds like that might be a mineral deficiency. Yeah. Um, Sharon, I brought all of my houseplants outside because of a termite abatement process that was scheduled. The procedure didn't happen. Who knows when it will? I live in Los Angeles. It was brought to my attention that houseplants could survive the LA winter. Should I leave them outside? Um, I've never been out west. Like, so I'm not sure how cold does it get. Does LA ever get snow? I don't, I mean, I feel like it wouldn't. But I mean, if it doesn't, it depends on the plant. So like I mentioned, there are certain house plants that even though they're tropical, they can survive even if it were to hit 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So I would just double check what you have, what kind of plants you have, and if it's definitely not hitting 40, and those plants are okay to go that low, then that's fine. There are other house plants that like they can't deal with anything under 60. Like 55 to 60 is like red caution territory for them. It's way too cold for them. So I think you would just have to double check what kind of plants and how cold it's expected to get. Um, and I think that those two things are gonna kind of let you know what plants you can leave outside, and maybe what plants you can't leave outside. Diane's asking full strength rubbing alcohol. Yes, I actually do. I don't dilute it. Now, if you're nervous about that, that you can definitely dilute it, but I use 70% straight alcohol. and for my plants. Um, and yes, so if you're trying it for the first time, I've never had any issues with any of my plants like burning or anything as a result. I've even used this on Pelia and begonias with no problem. But if you're nervous about it, of course, every plant is different, will react differently to different things. You can do a test spot, so you can like spray maybe a smaller leaf and just see how it fares. So you can definitely double check that, so you don't have to spray the whole plant if you're unsure. Do a test spot and see. It dries really quickly. It's not something that's going to drench your plant and stay on there. It literally evaporates super quickly. But if there's anything on there, if there's any young like mealy bugs or aphids or anything like that, this has been my go-to. And the minute if I see like mealy bugs, I spray them. And they turn black as soon as the alcohol hits them. And then it's like I do an initial spray. So sometimes my Hoyas are very prone to mealybugs. So first I spray them the minute that I see it. Then I bring them to the sink and then I give them a really good wash to really try to get everything out of there. I put into a bottle, I'll put like 1 drop of Dawn dish soap, the non, if that or Castile soap. So with water, and then I kind of really kind of spray the plant down and really go in there just to make sure. And then after it's all nice and dry, I give it one more round of this just to make sure. And that works. That works. Hydrogen peroxide. So with hydrogen peroxide, so you want to dilute it at least 4 times. So you want to have like 4 parts water and 1 part 4 parts water and 1 part hydrogen peroxide. You want to make it as diluted as possible. You don't want to um ever put full strength peroxide in the soil of your plant. I would not recommend putting hydrogen peroxide on the leaves. That will burn the leaves automatically. Why would you put it in the soil? So sometimes if you have a really bad pest issue that is in the soil, so there are like mealy bugs, there's root mealies, there are certain types of pests that do attack like inside of the soil. So that I understand when people want to do what is called a hydrogen peroxide drench. But the problem with that is that you also have good things that are in your soil, and the hydrogen peroxide, it doesn't discriminate against good. It's like when you take antibiotics and it kills the good bacteria and the bad bacteria in your gut. Same thing. So it kills the good and the bad in the soil. So you don't really want to do a hydrogen peroxide drench on your plant more than like twice a year and like with 6 months in between. So I really wouldn't recommend that. Now, if you were just trying to do a topical thing on the soil, you can do like a little light spray if there was something on the soil. But like a full drench, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot on the plant. It takes time to recover. The roots can also burn. It's very corrosive. So hydrogen peroxide is kind of like a tricky one. Is a tricky one. Hey Aguila, do you have a Zelle account? I do have a Zelle account. I do. I'll try to see if I can put up the I think they do QR codes now for Zelle. So if I can put that up. Kim, we are expecting frost on Thanksgiving Monday in Southeast Ontario. Wow, so you have a little bit more time. I was surprised that so that they're upstate here, they're already expecting a frost in the next 2 weeks, the first frost, and that apparently like in Wisconsin, yeah, it's getting cold too. So uh it's a scary scary time now. It's gonna get cold quick. I felt like I was just complaining about how hot it was, and now we're already jumping straight into the cold. I like a longer fall period where you're kind of. I also need that acclimation period between the seasons. I don't want to go full blown from one season to like skip. I don't want to skip the fall. I like fall is my favorite time of year. Oh, Diane, thank you so much. Yes, there's a lot on the horizon, so I'm really excited to share that with everyone. And oh yes, and have a great week. Seriously, everyone. Oh, Gail, in Florida, we have little lizards that get everywhere. They don't hibernate, unfortunately. Yes, I think those might be animals. So you might have like geckos and animals that are kind of running around everywhere. I know that Florida just has so many introduced species. It's nuts. I would love to I've been to Florida a few times, but I would love to go and like participate with like an invasive species study or something like that down the line one day. Because you guys have so many cool things that shouldn't be there. Like I've seen folks pulling out like Burmese pythons, reticulated pythons, um the what's it called? The Central American boas and different types of caiman and a bunch of like chameleons and gold like the golden day geckos and things like that. So uh I would love to go out and catch stuff. I love snakes. I love all that. So I would love to. And back in another life, many years ago, I used to work with a an exotic animal rescue, and so I used to be the one that was taking care of alligators, and that was fun times. So so I have a very healthy respect for alligators, um, and yeah, oh man, I would just love to. I mean, I wouldn't go at night. I definitely wouldn't go at night. But I would like to go like on a study or something or like a survey where you kind of see how many occurrences of the animals you see to kind of get an idea in like square footage um how much there might be in that area. So those are fun things. And then Shiri, houseplants outdoors have gained a lot of weeds. That's a good point. Should I repot the plant completely before bringing it inside or just take the weeds off the top? That is a very good question. So, yeah, I mean, if you think it's ready to repot, so if it's very happy in its pot and it doesn't need to be repot, then I would say just pull the weeds out, just remove the weeds and don't worry about the having to repot. But if the plant is at a point where you're like, okay, this it has grown and it also got a bunch of weeds, so I might as well just do a nice big cleansing repot and remove the weeds in the process, then totally. um oh, Terry, did the rain wash out the minerals? That's a very good question. So that could have absolutely, yes, since there has been a lot of rainfall, that can wash out a lot of the minerals that are in your soil. And so you would end up having to replenish that. I did not even think about that. That's a very good point. That is a very good point. Ava, you've never been out west. You must visit. Yes. Yes. I really want to go. Brian, I think last year, went to California for a work thing for a few days, and I was like, oh, so jealous. I wanted to go so bad. So, that's something we need to go. Like, I want to plan a trip for both of us, to go like out to California. I also want to see a desert. I've never seen a desert before in person, so I'd like to go to like Arizona or Nevada or somewhere where there's deserts so that I can see a desert in person. Because I mean, I've been to the rainforest. I've seen like a lot of like the opposite, but now I want to see a desert. And I mean, I love um cacti and I love dry plants. I collect a lot of them, and so I'd love to actually see the desert. Yeah. Um and yeah. And then let me see. Oh, and you're very welcome about the mealy bug help. I'm so sorry that you had to toss out 8 plants. Oof. That's yeah. I mean, I feel like mealy bugs are one of those infestations that it's a little easier to deal with, thankfully. a little easier. Kim, we have a light frost already. Oh no, all the painted lady bean vines have died off. I am so sorry. Where are you located, Kim? Just so I have a an idea of where you are. Since we already had 2 nights with frost a couple weeks ago, and then nowhere near frost since. Okay, good. But wow, that's nuts. So some people are already getting that. Oh, and this is a good question, Gabby. What if I can't bring my outdoor plants in? I have potted chives, hydrangeas, salvia, rose. What do you recommend? Yes, so there are some plants that will, be okay if like, especially like hydrangeas. They'll be fine over the winter. They can survive. They'll die back. The leaves will fall and they'll just look like a bunch of sticks, you know. But it will come back in the spring, definitely. Pot chives are actually pretty resilient to cold temperatures. So chives are one of those. It depends on the varieties, but even things like onion grass and wild chives, I've found in the winter. So they do pretty well, as do roses. So a lot of roses, um, they're fine. They'll come right back. Salvia, I'm not sure. I've never worked with salvia. I've never grown it. So I'm not sure about salvia, but with rose, definitely. Even here, there's like an invasive Japanese rose, multiflora rose, and that even in the winter, it retains a lot of its leaves and the stems are still there. And then as soon as there's the first hints of spring, it's immediately putting out leaves. So yeah, a lot of roses do just fine. Even with like tons of snow on top of them, they're totally fine. Holly, if you go on Crime Pays but Botany Doesn't, I love his stuff. He's great. He was actually here in New York City, I think on September 20th. But I was working and he was at this shop. I think he was doing a workshop. And it was really, really sad that I couldn't meet him in person. I've done some of his private classes, like he does like Zoom classes sometimes. I have been in those, and those are fun. Those are a lot of fun. And I just love he like curses and everything. It's just it's hilarious. Like he's so knowledgeable, but he's so chill. It's really great. Yes, it would be so much fun to see like a group listening to him. And he doesn't always point out invasive species. Um but he does a lot of like guerrilla gardening. So he's planted a lot of like natives and stuff to different areas and it's awesome. And yes, it is sad. The floods, yeah. It was really scary because we were unsure what was going to happen, but we were totally fine. So, we were fine. The worst things, like, we get like a little water in the basement, but we learned from last year. I had like some boxes with books that were ruined. So I had switched some of our, because like the building uses the basement as storage. So last winter, I think it was, I switched a bunch of like the boxes that we had downstairs are now plastic. And so, it was not as bad, not as bad this time around. But yeah, it's something, thankfully that was it. Other people got it way worse. Um, thank you, Terry. Oh, you're in Ontario. Oh, Kim. Oh man, but yeah, I can't believe it already got. And since as weather here is so odd that you're near Denver, can't get used to it being from Southern California, east of Pasadena until 2 years ago. And you really must go to Southern California in their spring to see the desert. It's a beautiful bloom. Oh, I love that. Yeah, I would absolutely love that. And then Holly says Santino saw cactus growing in the concrete. Oh, saw a tiny saw cactus growing in a concrete in New York along the river where there used to be a train by the Brooklyn Bridge. That is awesome. That is really, really awesome. Yeah. Sometimes there, weird occurrences. There are things like even euphorbia that I've seen that grow here. And yeah, like the different spurges and that will grow here successfully. And there are opuntia. So Opuntia, which are prickly pear cacti, they do naturally native. They're native here. So that's why I'm saying there are some cacti that are made or built for this. They're built to have snow, on top of them, and they're totally fine. And then there's like others that are like absolutely not. They can't go like under 40 degrees. That's it. Like 40 degrees is their threshold. So absolutely not. But yeah. Kim, yes, I cover my bush with a styrofoam plant cover and they survive. Yes. So there are certain so some folks who get ornamental plants that they definitely don't do well in a hard freeze. So this for the person who was asking that question, right, about these like bigger plants like that are outside, that what do you do? So in that case, if you know that, okay, no, they're not really going to do well in a hard freeze, but maybe it's something you can't bring inside. Some people do actually cover them. So yes, so as Kim mentioned, there are like styrofoam plant covers. There's also like black plastic that is used to kind of cover the plant, to kind of give it a little bit more protection from the elements. Some people also pile things like hay or wood chips around the base of the plant so that the roots have a little bit more protection from, and it's like more layers. So the roots don't, that cold can't penetrate all the way down to the roots and freeze them. So there are things you can do to mitigate them. It just depends on, again, it depends on the plant. So some plants are totally fine and some will need that extra protection. But yeah, and then Kim says we have 2 cactuses that are winter hardy and they bloom in the summer. That's wonderful. And yesterday we were at 29.2 Celsius, close to 90. Woof. Yeah, you get right? Isn't that nuts? You get super cold and then all of a sudden it's like super hot. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. Oh, there we go. So I got to all the questions. But thank you so much everyone for tuning in. I hope that was helpful. These are always fun, and yeah, so I'm really excited, and I'll be sharing the progress of all this stuff that I'm working on, and yeah, doing that. Right now I work for the School of Evolutionary Herbalism too, and I think that's just what's happening is I'm doing a little too much right now. So we're doing enrollment. So today they're doing a free webinar, and so I'm gonna moderate there, so I gotta get ready to do that. But yeah, so that's at 4, so I have to make sure I eat something. I haven't eaten something yet. Brian brought me some matcha, so I have some caffeine. But yeah, I have a full day ahead, and yeah, so I'm getting through this week, getting through this because we close enrollment I think on Thursday, so it's gonna be a busy week. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Oh no,
Thank
Holly, I'm so sorry that you caught COVID. Oh, Diane, Diane, thank you so much. Seriously, thank you. I really, really, really love these Monday morning classes. It's like starts off my Mondays on a high note. Yeah.
We love them also.
Thank you. Thank you. And Ava, yes. So she said, please take care of yourself. Yeah, busy. Yes, yes, busy lady. Absolutely. And I'm trying to. Yes. Oh, absolutely. Like I unfortunately I'm not like I'm part of the board for the American Herbalist Guild. And so I told them that I'm just doing a little too much. And so we were running for re-election in the fall, and I was like, I'm gonna finish out my term in December, and I think I'm gonna have to put that down, take that hat off, at least for now. Maybe I'll rerun in the future, but oh, it's yeah. So trying to yeah put some hats down, because yeah, it's a lot. So I really want to focus on like urban garden and putting out some of my own, like content and stuff. I literally have a backlog of all these like videos of different even botanical garden tours. So we have one from Denver. We did go to Denver for my cousin's wedding. I think that's like the farthest like I've been. I've been up and down the East Coast, but like, I think that's like the farthest in I've been is Colorado. But we've have one from Denver. We have one from the Botanical Garden by Niagara Falls. We have one from I think Birmingham, Alabama, and we have one from Atlanta, Georgia. So I have quite a couple tours, from botanical gardens, and so um, I'm, I'm excited to finally edit those and get those out to folks so that you can see. And the same with I think I had shown you a little bit of a tour that I had done at Ill Exotics in Philadelphia. So yeah, I'm gonna try to get those finally like really edited well and out so that folks can check them out. So you can enjoy all the all the things that we were able to see there. So I'm excited, and I want to definitely make more. I want to hit a bunch of different botanical gardens. That's on my list. But yes, and Kim, yeah, absolutely. Like trying to get, to more art. So do what nourishes your soul. Try. So um yeah, just so try. Seriously, don't stop doing what you love. Absolutely not. Like I love my jobs, but at the same time it's like I really want to focus on my business. So um and really that's a lot of like educational content. So that's what I really want to focus on. But I appreciate you all being here. And yes, thank you, Marianne. Yes, I'm very, oh, thank you. But I'm, yeah, very happy that we avoided the floods. But thank you so much, everyone. Please stay safe. Yeah, move to the Midwest. Yeah. That would be fun. That would be fun. Um, but definitely take care of yourselves. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Gosh, we're in October already. Uh, so yeah, spooky season. I'm already, I mean, a lot of our decor, we have like skulls and stuff all over the house, but I'm really excited. I have a little Christmas tree that is Halloween. And so I love to take it out for the whole Halloween season, all through through Christmas. So yeah, excited to bring some of those things out. But thank you so much, everyone. And again, stay safe, and I'll see you next week. So
Bye, Jocelyn. Take care.
you too, take care. Bye, everyone. And so bye for now. Bye for now. I'll see you next week. Have a good one.